All set, Kelly.
All right. Thank you so much, Angela. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Bar Talk, the Maine State Bar Association's connection with our members this March 1st of 2021. Nice to see all of you virtually. My name is Kelly McDonald. I'm the current president of the MSBA. We've got some good stuff to go through today. We're going to start off our half hour together with our guest speaker. Judge Rich was good enough to agree to join us here today. And Judge Rich is going to be giving us an overview of where things have been going with regards to the pandemic at the District of Maine and what he sees coming on down the line, what we should expect as practitioners in the upcoming weeks, months, hopefully not years. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge March 1st means that it is now almost exactly a year ago, short just a couple of weeks, when all of this really came home to us. The schools shut down, the executive orders, emergency executive orders started to be issued. Of course, it started for folks in other parts of the country and other parts of the world before this, but personally, here in Maine, we are coming up on our 1-year anniversary. It's a sobering anniversary, over 500,000 people dead, and significant impacts on all of our lives. And it's important to acknowledge those moments. Well, on that uplifting note, Judge Rich, thanks so much for joining us here today to talk about the District of Maine. And I'll just turn it right over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. And sincere thanks to Kelly for asking me whether I would join Maine Bar Talk today. The topic that Kelly asked me to say a few words about is to provide you an update on the federal court, the District of Maine's operations over the last 12 months, including the resumption of jury trials and other in-court hearings. I'm going to say a couple things by way of disclaimers at the beginning, if you'll allow me. The first is that I'm not speaking for the court. I'm just speaking as one judge of the court. So where I'll be saying to you is my understanding of what the last year has been like, and of course, having lived it, and also where we are heading. But there are some decisions that have yet to be made by the judges collectively. So I hope you'll forgive me in advance if I am less than sure about some of the issues going forward. The other is that because of the limitation in time, I don't have prepared remarks. I thought I'd just say a few things, but obviously this will be somewhat general because of our limitations in terms of time. What I thought I would do, hoping to leave a little bit of time for questions as well, is talk about essentially 3 things this morning. The first is to give you an overview of the last 12 months in the district, both criminal and civil. I think there might be some things that not all of you would know and that might be of interest to you. And then talk a little bit more specifically about the criminal docket for the criminal practitioners that are on the line, and finally talk about the civil docket. So not surprisingly, as has been true for all of our personal and professional lives, the last 12 months have been a tectonic change for the district in terms of how it has been conducting its business, both on the criminal and the civil side of the docket. What I think has been remarkable in the district, and I'm going to give credit for it in a moment, is how much has been accomplished in this district in the last 12 months. And for that, the credit first has to go to Chief Judge Levy, who responded very quickly and very assertively and with a lot of creativity, I think, to the pandemic in the very early days of the pandemic. And also, I think the credit has to go to all of you, to the Maine Bar. I think what we have been able to accomplish in this district is a direct result of the resilience, frankly, the collegiality, and the hard work that Maine lawyers have put in over the last 12 months. At the beginning of the pandemic last spring, 12 months ago, as Kelly has just said, with the leadership of our chief, Judge Levy, the district pivoted almost immediately to a 100% remote proceeding. I shouldn't say 100% because there were still some exceptions to everything being done by video remotely. The grand jury, although it did not meet as regularly as it would over the last 12 months, has met both in Portland and Bangor, a few more times in Bangor than in Portland. We have had a few in-court proceedings, both preliminary criminal matters where a defendant has not consented to proceeding by video, which is, you know, is a prerequisite under the CARES Act, and also some in-court proceedings involving one sentencing before Judge Hornby, for example, a suppression hearing before Judge Torreson. The sentencing was, I believe, last October, and the suppression hearing was in January before Judge Torreson. But very little in the way of in-court proceedings, except for taking the grand jury risings, which has been more regular, and what I have just described. Notwithstanding that, the statistics for 2020 have really been remarkable. And if you'll allow me, I'll just read some of them to you. According to Judge Levy, who gave a year-end review and report to our district, there were 433 civil cases closed last year, despite the pandemic, and 175 criminal defendants cases also were closed, about 150 criminal cases involving about 175 defendants. There were 461 telephonic, video, or in-person hearings last year in civil cases. The use of our video proceedings for court proceedings and administrative proceedings totaled almost 9,000 hours, which worked out to about 165 hours a week, giving you some idea of the volume we're talking about. We held in criminal and in magistrate cases over 1,300 telephone, video, and in-person hearings, almost all of those telephone and video, and almost 900 orders and written decisions were issued last year. Just this past Friday, Chief, as you may or may not know, Chief Judge Levy conducted by video a citizenship ceremony in which 11 new U.S. citizens were sworn in. So the range of work and the volume of work has really been remarkable, considering where, at least I thought, we were in March of last year in terms of, frankly, getting very much done. In terms of the filings in the court, if you'll bear with me just another moment on the statistics, the civil filings for the civil practitioners on the line were down, but actually not, again, nearly as much as I would have expected because of the pandemic. So in 2019, there were 554 civil filings. And last year, there were 502 civil filings. Now, that's down, of course, about 10% from year to year. But there are actually fewer than 500 civil filings in 2018. So the total number of civil filings last year actually exceeded what was true in the district in 2018. I think by itself an interesting statistic. Now on the criminal side, the filings are down quite a bit more. I think it's fair to say that the fact that the grand jury wasn't sitting for much of the year, despite, as I mentioned, a few sittings in Portland and Bangor for the year, is probably the short answer to why. But our felony criminal case filings last year were only about a third of what they were in 2019. So the felony criminal cases, there were about 300 of those filed in 2019, only 100 in 2020, which is the lowest number for the last decade. Turning to the criminal docket, and I'll try to pick up the pace here a little bit, but let me just touch on the criminal and the civil docket. As I mentioned, almost all of the preliminary criminal proceedings have been conducted by video. And that does require, in every instance, the defendant's consent and a fairly detailed colloquy with a defendant and with counsel, and also a sizable number of Rule 11 pleas and sentencings have taken place again with the defendant's consent in criminal cases. I mentioned the sentencing in October before Judge Hornby that took place in person, and the suppression hearing in front of Judge Torsen, but a larger number of Rule 11s and sentencings over the last months have taken place by video. The grand jury, although its convenings were far fewer last year, at least in Portland, which has been trailing Bangor in terms of frequency of the grand jury, has picked back up. I took a grand jury rising last week. The grand jury is sitting this week for 2 days. So that, I'm sure, will translate into an increase on our criminal docket. In terms of trial lists, and now I'm looking a little bit forward. For those of you, again, who are criminal practitioners, you'll be aware that there were a total of 60 criminal cases that appeared on the two trial lists, one for Portland and one for Bangor. As of the end of the day on Friday, those 60 cases have all either resolved or been continued. Now, I hasten to say a significant number of them have been continued. But again, I think remarkably, there are at the moment for April, no criminal cases, no criminal jury cases scheduled to go to trial. So that obviously is an important indicator of how, despite the grand jury not meeting and despite the drop in filings, the district court is in good shape, I would say, with regard to its criminal docket. Just a word before I turn to civil cases about search warrants. For those of you who might be interested, we immediately started making use of Rule 4.1 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. And so search warrants or criminal complaints are all now being done telephonically. The attestations are being done telephonically as the rule permits. With regard to the month of April and the criminal docket, with regard to the month of April, the court, and this is where a decision has not been made, but the court is thinking about using that month to begin to hear some of the non-jury criminal matters, suppression hearings, or sentencings where a defendant has not consented for the month of April. I should say that for those of you who don't know, for both Portland and Bangor, only one courtroom is being used in each location. So in both cases, it's courtroom 2. Courtroom 2 in Portland is where Judge Torsen sits, as you know, and courtroom 2 in Bangor. Those will be the only locations where in-court proceedings will take place for the foreseeable future. Now that does mean a substantial reduction in terms of in-court space, and I'm sure will have ramifications, including on the civil docket. But let me turn to that and wrap up with where we are in the civil docket. So of course, the civil cases must yield to the criminal docket, as has always been true. And with only one courtroom, there is limited availability in terms of the civil cases. The civil trial list that issued, and as you know, it's a consolidated list that issues for both Bangor and Portland, has not disappeared entirely, although it has shrunk quite a bit. There were a total of 36 cases in Portland and Bangor scheduled on the April civil jury trial list. And in Portland, 5 of the 24 Portland cases remain, and 3 of the 12 bench trials remain. When I say 36, I'm sorry, that's a combination of 24 jury cases and 12 bench trials. And then in Bangor, Portland has 5 civil jury cases still awaiting trial. From the trial list, Bangor has 4, and Portland has 3 bench cases awaiting trial from the 12, and Bangor has 1 from the 12. So still a significant drop by more than half from the original number of cases. With regard to non-trial practice on the civil side, again, I have to commend all of you. I have been very surprised, pleasantly surprised, that there has not been an increase in discovery disputes. I have seen, and Judge Nivison as well, an increase in requests for extension of pretrial deadlines. That's more than understandable. And typically, those are being granted for obvious reasons. Judge Nivison has been conducting a significant number, as many of you I'm sure know, of settlement conferences by video, which has been a very important part, as always, and other judges as well. But I think it's fair to say primarily Judge Nivison, a significant part of moving the civil docket. So, in summary, it's been a productive year for the district, even when held up against what has been true historically. We need to decide how the courtroom space, the limited courtroom space for the month of April, is going to be used. I have some final pretrial conferences this week, and other judges as well. All in all, both on the criminal and on the civil side, we're just very grateful that we've been able to make the progress that we have, and that while things I'm sure will be busy, they appear, hopefully I'm not jinxing ourselves, but they appear to be in hand at this point. So I'm sorry that was more than 10 minutes, but that's my sort of thumbnail overview. I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent I can.
Well, thank you so much, Judge Rich. Kelly McDonald here. If folks do have questions, go ahead and put them in chat, and we'll see if we can address them. So Judge, while we're waiting to see if others have questions, my question for you is, what are the precautions that the court has set up to allow juries to be in place, to make sure that health is balanced against, well, you can't really balance these two things, but how to take into consideration health concerns and issues of how you advocate to juries?
Right. That's an excellent question. That actually is something that I was going to touch on, but sort of stayed away from because of the time this morning. But some of you may know that there are protocols that Judge Levy has issued, that the court has issued regarding in-court proceedings generally, and those are very significant. I should start, of course, by mentioning the limitation to one courtroom in each of the courthouses. The court started by reaching out, as did some other federal courts in the First Circuit, to an expert. His name is Dr. Aaron Bromage. He is a professor at UMass Dartmouth. And Dr. Bromage has been a very important, really critical resource in terms of getting guidance for how we should be conducting in-court proceedings, and also, frankly, getting an evaluation of our physical facilities. The good news, you'll be glad to hear, is with some improvements in terms of filters and some upgrade of our HVAC system, both courthouses have received good grades from Dr. Bromage. The court, this isn't fully responsive to your question, but in terms of staff, Kelly, the court has cut back dramatically on who's here in the courthouse, both in chambers and in terms of staff. And as far as the jury and the prospective jury is concerned, I can't go into all of the steps that have been taken, but they range from in the courtroom, plexiglass, and of course the social distancing that's required, to a new system that allows, with the use of a closed circuit and headphones, sidebars to be conducted without actually being at sidebar. It's an amazing system. It's very, very sensitive. You can literally whisper, and everyone else who has headphones on within the system, which would be the judge, the lawyers, anyone else who's been granted access, can hear even very, very softly spoken comments. So that will be a very critical way of proceeding. In terms of the jury selection, I think probably the best way to summarize how we're approaching that is to try to maximize the for-cause challenges by doing those by video prior to the veneer being brought into the courthouse. So the idea, of course, is to keep to a minimum the number of people who are physically in either of the buildings. And the plan to do that is to have, as much as possible, 100% won't be possible, but to have for-cause challenges dealt with in advance. And then the jury will be spread out. It will be, when the jury retires to deliberate, it'll be deliberating in Portland in a different courtroom. There are various other restrictions in terms of being limited to the podium, not moving around the courtroom, how exhibits are handled. I won't go into all the details, but there's I was looking this morning at the protocol that Judge Levy entered. It's a little bit dated at this point, but it will give those of you a good idea. Back in October in 20 MC 80-P-L, and you can see it's a 5-page single-spaced protocol that lays out a lot of the detail about how in-court proceedings will take place.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Judge. And as this process gets underway, I hope that you will come back in a month or two and let us know how things have turned out. And it's going to be very important for practitioners, I think, to be prepared as they are moving towards trial as to what to anticipate based on whoever is lucky enough to be the first couple of trials.
Right. Well, thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'll be happy to come back whenever you'd like.
That sounds great. And folks, if anybody has additional questions for the judge that we couldn't address. I didn't see any in the chat, but if you had questions that you were worried about posing because of our time constraints, if you send them our way, we'll pass them on to the judge and then see if we can get responses back to you. So thanks again, Judge. Let's move through the other items on this agenda in quick order. Just an update from the governor's side. We do have obviously the shift to age-based vaccination eligibility, which is well, that's kind of exciting to actually have some dates that we can look forward to vaccines. Executive Order 32 formalizes the Judicial Nominations Advisory Committee. I think, based on my reading of it, it sounds like it was less of a formal process before, but now it is an official committee, daggone it. And this is the executive office order making that happen. And just some other notes there. Angela, let me turn it over to you for the things that you would like to highlight for MSBA.
I think in particular, I want to highlight that the judicial evaluations have been sent out. The link came out. You should have received it this morning in your email if you have not opted out otherwise. Also, the Law Day contest is open, so please visit our website to check on that. If you know of any people in the school system, we'd love for you to pass that information on. And finally, Maine Bar Connect, which is our online communities that we launched today. We only launched it with our sections and committees as an initial launch. We will launch it to the entire membership once we work through a few of the kinks and stuff, but it will be available soon. And it is an online community where you'll be able to share information and talk directly back and forth to each other through Maine Bar Connect.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. And on judicial evaluations, again, your input is super important there. Please do make sure that you fill that out. All right. So as you know, we've added practice tips to our standard rotation here. Let me start out by making a pitch. I bet you have a practice tip that you would be interested in sharing with your peers. Please send them my way or Angela's way. We'll invite you to appear on Bar Talk to present it if you would like. In this case, Mark Perry said, no, you go ahead and take care of it, and we will. But we'd love to have your knowledge and information. So here are some cool tips that I'm not a title person. I'm not a real estate person. They are things that I had never really thought of before, but now I'll think about them. And so we've got 3 key tips: putting the description right into the deed instead of an Exhibit A to keep the deed from being recorded without the description. Stating the final due date on the mortgage. That's something I had never thought about doing. But you have to have the date for that title standard to take effect. And then finally, trying to avoid the practice of using quitclaim deeds, especially between family members, and to use warranty deeds instead to ensure that after acquired title is conveyed. Wow, talk about a niche idea that I would never have known was an issue, much less how to solve it. How do we print the real estate practice tips? That's a great question. I don't know. Angela?
They'll be available online after the program, and you'll be able to visit the website, go to the materials, and you can download them.
And when you say the website, you mean our website?
Our website, yes.
Our website. And there's a whole section there for Bar Talk. And you can look at the slides from any past Bar Talk and go watch the YouTube video just because it's so exciting to see it again. Thanks to Mark Perry for those tips. Really appreciate them. And folks, please send your ideas our way. Bill Nugent makes a great suggestion, which I haven't been doing and I should try, which is to make a phone call to someone so you can hear their voice. Nobody needs to call me because you've heard my voice enough as a result of Bar Talk, but call a friend. And Angela took the opportunity to offer up the gratitude for today.
I spent a beautiful day on the lake yesterday. It was gorgeous.
And you went ice fishing and tell us what you caught.
We caught a native trout, brook trout, and salmon, and they were delicious.
Fantastic. Excellent. And no beverages were consumed while out on the ice, I'm sure. My family hiked Chikora over in Conway yesterday, and it was a gorgeous day. So listen, folks, a few minutes over the half hour, but thank you so much for hanging with us. We really appreciate you being here. If you have ideas for guests for future Bar Talk sessions, love to hear them. I hope you have a good week, and we will see you next week on Bar Talk. Have a great day.